Okay, this is going to be probably one of our last public videos because we really need to get this information out since we seem to have to keep repeating it over and over again to people. So we're going to start out. First off and foremost, the first duality religion and monotheism, because it went from duality into a monotheism due to the orthodoxy of it, is Zoroastrianism. Everything before Zoroastrianism is polytheistic. Polytheistic means it has a range of gods. There's no one God and then his folks below him. There's no one bad God and his folks below him. That doesn't happen until you get to Zoroastrianism. We're going to start there. People need to understand. So this crap of Satanism leading back, well, we'll just say devil worshiping leading back to Samaria, it's a no-no. That is still a polytheistic arraignment of gods.
But so if you have polytheism, then you don't have a devil.
Yeah, you don't. The gods may be adversaries to one another, but there's not an antithesis. There's not an antithesis, however you want to pronounce it. Okay, the first antithesis versus a creator is Zoroastrianism. Period. Blank. Do your research. Now, are there underworld gods in these other religions? Yes, Nergal specifically in the Sumerian pantheon. But as far as good versus evil as a construct and a sin war between the two does not occur until Zoroastrianism. Period. Even Judaism did not originate as a monotheism. It was a polytheistic religion up until the intermissioning or intermashing of the cultures in that time period. So moving into the original fire tribes of Persia, before Zoroaster came in, Zeravan was one of the many gods. And when the first, I guess you would call, tier of orthodoxy, Zoroastrianism, after Zoroaster died, to explain how Angra Mainyu and Ahura Mazda came to be, they took back from the old fire tribes and brought Zeravan in as the All-Father. How they would describe like Odin being the All-Father for all the gods. From Zeravan, you bring about the concepts that you see in other origin stories of sacrifice. And that sacrifice for an eternity. Well, sacrifice for eternity in that time frame was 1,000. Their numbers did not go beyond 1,000. So that's why they say Zeravan sacrificed for 1,000 years. That sacrifice, they don't say what it is, but it's assumed that it's the vibration, the universal vibration. And either way it goes, either he became self-impregnated with the twin sons, or the Kalwani Shahanian, I know I'm mispronouncing it, but it's in our literature, became, like the Parusa, became pregnant with the two sons. He was sacrificing for Ahura Mazda or Armazad, but he began to have doubt because of how long the sacrifice was taking. So that self-doubt became personified with Angra Mainyu. Evil, or Angra Mainyu, or chaos, darkness, became aware first. That means darkness, evil, has a higher intelligence, has a higher ability to develop, has a higher problem-solving ability to reconsider his situation. Thus, Ahriman rips himself out first before Ahura Mazda even becomes conscious or aware. Evil was brought forth, darkness was brought forth into reality first. And with that ripping its way out and into reality, thus the beginnings of everything being spread out from the Purusha and making the essence of the universe. It was the darkness first. When Zervan grabbed the Angra Mainyu, thou dark and stinky, you are not my son. Because he was looking at the ebony mirror. He could not face his shadow self. He could not face his self-doubt. And that's why he was casted off. And then Ahura Mazda is born, and Ahura Mazda was the son that he was looking for. Thus the kingdom was granted to him, and it was Ahura Mazda who put the pieces of the universe together. Knowing that Ahriman was still in the universe, Zervan then expands himself to become the whole of the universe. So the universe and everything that's in the universe, the planets, the stars, is Purusha. And now, like Brahma, Zervan becomes the whole universe. Then the active consciousness of creation is now Ahura Mazda. With Ahura Mazda came the Spenta Mainyu. The Spenta Mainyu are 6 aspects of individual parts of Ahura Mazda. Sometimes it's seen as 6 archangels, but they're supposed to be just the separate 6 aspects of Ahura Mazda. They asked Ahura Mazda to create Earth, to create humankind. And Ahura Mazda warned them that if you create this, Angra Mainyu will come and attack it. And they said, well, that's the price we have to pay, then thus do so. So once the world and mankind is created, here comes the original devil to attack reality. His job is to destroy all of it. He is the antithesis to Ahura Mazda. There's a lot of things that people like to complain about when they say, well, he's just a co-creator. He creates off of what Ahriman, or off of what Ahriman creates off of what Ahura Mazda makes by corrupting it. But that's not necessarily so. What he's doing is he is creating a thing to specifically attack the other thing that was already created. So it is a counter creation, yes, but it's still his own creation. It doesn't require this God's power to create a counter creation to go against it. What they mean by counter creation is that it is to counter this. So if this is love, happiness, and joy, then he creates something that's hatred, anger, and rage. And it counters this. And this is where you see a misrepresentation of the language when you're crossing, through different languages to get the point across. So if you say that in a vest and counter creation, it means it's counter or adversarial to specifically that thing. Make sense?
It's like adding negative numbers.
Kind of. Like,
it's on the number line, like 8 equals out to 0, they cancel
exactly.
each other out.
Like that, yes. So, he's the antithesis of all creation, and he creates something to counter everything that has been created, to further along the creation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there was something I was thinking about. Maybe he chooses to be a counter creator because there's creation to be destroyed. I mean, once all that's out of the way, wouldn't he be free to create whatever he wants then? And then he wouldn't necessarily need to be destructive?
Exactly. Right now, he is just the direct antithesis to his brother because of how he was treated by his father. Bottom line.
And so once those guys are out of the way, he can finally sort of be his own man, so to speak.
So to speak, yeah.
That's kind of what I was getting when I was reading the Bible of Corruption,
Yeah.
but I wasn't sure.
Basically, that's what's going on. And then that goes into finite and infinite. But the problem being is if you take the finite of Angra Mainyu to the infinite of Ahura Mazda and they embrace, that creates the cataclysm. Because now you have an infinite a finite infinity,
Okay.
which is apocalyptic or a cataclysmic.
Or a black hole.
Exactly.
Yeah, like a black hole scenario.
So the point of the devil is to get out and to embrace his brother, to have that cataclysm. Bottom line. It's in the literature. If you want to find it and you want to research it, great. I'm taking it by my word, great. I really don't care. You can spend the hours I have spent reading this shit. I don't care. And that is what is trying to happen. So one of the more famous stories that's been brought about in Zoroastrianism is the Malik Taus issue. The mythos is that Ahura Mazda created the beautiful eagle, and that's the thing that the fucking dudes always writing on it. The Javasa, whatever the fuck they call the little thing they wear all the time. Ahriman takes it, converts it into a peacock. And the peacock then represents Malik Taus. What a lot of people don't understand and what is going on there is you're seeing a corruption of Vishnu. Vishnu is the protector. Vishnu is the upholder. Vishnu is the thing that is supposed to keep reality alive around. So by the devil corrupting the eagle and turning it into the peacock, he's thus corrupting the protector or the defender of reality. Does that make sense?
Like the ozone layer, like
Well,
UV rays breaking through.
No, not like that. There's Brahma, and then from Brahma, who is the creator of the world.
Yeah.
Okay, this is going Hindu, so hopefully it'll make more sense. There's Brahma. And then the other parts of Brahma are he creates, Vishnu protects and upholds it.
Yeah.
Shivai destroys it.
Alright.
Okay? Then all three together rebuild it.
Hmm.
But what the Zoroastrians are showing is the corruption of Vishnu, the upholder, because they need Ahura Mazda to be the upholder, the creator, the protector, and all of those things combined.
Yeah.
So they're using the concept of Malik Taus because Vishnu is always with a peacock. And that's how they're representing it. So now Vishnu is being corrupted and he's no longer a protector. And because he sides with evil, now he becomes a contorted being. And that removes that aspect, which allows Ahura Mazda now to be all of those things in one.
Alright.
Make more sense?
Kind of like when big companies merge together.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then the Zoroastrians never acknowledge Zervan. Okay? Zervanism is a complete sub-Zoroastrian cult that exists by itself. Does that make sense? But it brings in more of the Vedic aspects because when you get into the history of Ahura Mazda,
Oh, my bad.
of Ahura Mazda or Ormazad, it's actually Vedic Indra. Their god is actually Vedic Indra. And if you know anything about the history between Vedic Indra and Shivai, then you understand how now you have the creator versus the destroyer. Or the king of gods versus the destroyer. And I'll let you look that story up on your own. And then we're also removing the concept of the upholder of Vishnu with Malik Taus. So we've corrupted that. Now, once we get into this whole shit of Zoroastrianism before it becomes Orthodox, these two are basically as powerful as each other. The war is going boom, 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 boom. And then when you get into Middle Zoroastrianism, right before they're forced out of Persia by the Arabians. Basically, they start orthodoxing it with Xerxes' grandfather.
Darius?
No, the one before
Cyrus.
Huh?
Cyrus.
Cyrus, thank you. And it starts with Cyrus, and then that's what, from that point on, because of the war with Rome and everything else, they start really orthodoxing. They call it Middle Zoroastrianism. And Middle Zoroastrianism is when they're bringing in things like the Order of Roth, the corrected, incorrect, all these other things that really orthodox religion, and it goes from a duality into a monotheism. And that's when they dumb down the devil. That's when they really start making Ahriman stupid. They make him seem like he's befuddleable, he's ignorant, he's dumb. That's when they create this time period between the two. It sits in Middle Zoroastrianism. And there's a lot of good information, especially in the Den card, but you have to go back and maintain the original concepts of the dark and the light without the orthodoxy, because then you start losing the power of the devil. And one of the biggest powers of the devil that is in this pre-Middle Zoroastrianism is the concept, we talk about Jahi a lot, but nobody knows where Jahi comes from. Ford doesn't lecture on it. We talk about it in the church, but we don't put it out there publicly that much. But the bottom line is, Anahita was the original form of Jahi. And if you want to take it to the Hindu, it's Sati. But anyway, basically, Zervan, and this is part of the Zervanistic cults things, and it's not in the direct Zoroastrianism, it's in the Zervan Zoroastrianism, where they sacrifice Anahita to go with Ahriman because they can't get the good men of God to procreate. They're not having sex with women, so they're not making babies. They're not expanding on the earth. And this is why the story of the menstruation is so important. So they had a problem, and they said, well, where can we take our problem? And this leads back to what I said in the beginning of this lecture. The devil is smarter. He has the ability to figure things out. His problem-solving skills are much greater than his father and his brother. So they presented, well, here's a woman that we're sacrificing to you. We need to be able to keep men happening. But they also knew that at the same time, though they're going to get what they want, there's going to be consequences to it because they're dealing with the devil. And he knows that the devil's going to infect it to where it can be used as a weapon against man and against God. It's just going to happen. But in order for them to keep having more worshipers, they're going to have to give into that aspect of it. And this is why within Zoroastrianism, everything is interlocked together. And it's all through this throughout the entire religion. And how we work it too, it's still everything is interlocked together. So for example, Zervan became the essence of the universe and hoping to push the disease of Ahriman out of the body. Now we have a problem where we need mankind to procreate, and this is the motherfucker with the only answer. But we know he's going to fuck it up in the process for us. But we don't have a choice, which again starts interlocking everything together more. So when they send Anahita down, we all know the story. He kisses her, she wakes him up. He kisses her on the forehead, and mankind, or womankind specifically, is forced with menstruation in order to have the cycle, to have the children in the bottom mouth, and blah, 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 blah. But that same menstruation, if a child is not born, that Ahrimani essence that come out of the woman now becomes a beacon for demons. And while she is menstruating, she now has the power to corrupt even the sun and the moon if she looks at them. Does that make sense? I mean, having that much power doesn't make sense, but does it make sense as to how he is forcing a constant corruption that's constantly being antithetical to creation? A woman who now can corrupt all of creation to include man, stars, moon, the planets, everything. Make sense?
The one thing that's bothering me though is why would the Zoroastrians give women more power than men if they were mostly patrilineal?
They don't give women more power than men. Tantra gives women equal to men. Zoroastrians actually degrade women. And women are not allowed to be clergy in Zoroastrianism.
I see.
Women actually, when they were menstruating, they were not allowed to leave the house. They were stuck in a specific room, wearing specific clothes, sitting on a specific pillow the entire time. And there was a specific way her food was handed to her and given back. And then all the linen and all the things was washed or burned in a specific way before the next cycle came around. They were not allowed to go outside and look at the sun. They were not allowed to look at anything. They were literally captive for 3 to 5 days in this room. So I understand what you're saying. Why are they giving them that much power? But they're not giving women the power. They're showing the power of the devil through the woman. And making it more evil. Make more sense now?
Yeah, technically they're making the natural thing that happens to a woman's body evil. So, yeah, degrading them.
Which comes from Hinduism, because they do the same shit. Bottom line. They're not as strict, but they still do the same shit as far as menstruation goes. So that's what Angra Mainyu originally is before you get into the Orthodox version of Zoroastrianism that has still survived today in India, Chicago, Flower Mound, Texas, and so forth. And you also see it move its way into Catholicism, Islam, so on. So any questions on where Ahriman is the antithesis to the creator and all that jazz?
No.
Okay. I hope it thoroughly, you got any, or is it explained enough? Okay, so we're going to go back now to Malik Taus. And I guess this will be a pre-lesson before we do the Malik Taus lesson. Because this is where we get into the devil is not Satan. Satan is not an antithetical being. He is not the thing that's trying to destroy God. Satan in his original form is an agent of God. When you're using the term Satan or Ha-Satan. So we have to understand that in the Mesopotamian area as a whole, or the Persian Empire as a whole, whatever, they had to fuck around and deal with the Jews. And don't think the Jews didn't influence them, and they didn't influence the Jews with their religious garbage. Just like the fucking Hindus influenced that shit, and they influenced the Hindu shit. Probably not as much, but it's there, and you have that interlocking. And now in modern times, you have Christianity, Judaism, and Islam all arguing about things and all trying to lie and disprove each other. And this is why the concept of Satan gets real fucked off real quick. First off and foremost, Satan is considered an adversary, not an antithesis. Make sense?
Yeah, but for the camera, what is the difference?
An antithetical being is trying to destroy everything that his opposite is creating.
Mm-hmm.
I want to destroy it, I want to remove it, I want it gone, I don't want it to exist any longer. An adversary is I'm opposed to what you're doing, I don't agree with you, and I'm going to force my method where you are forcing your method. An adversary is something as simple as, here's this basketball team and here's this basketball team, and now they're trying to win the game.
No, actually, I was going to bring it back home and say that sounds exactly like what our situation is with the Catholic Church and the Church of Satan. Because, they're doing those after-school programs and
You
stuff.
mean the Satanic Temple?
Yeah, them.
Well, exactly.
That sounds like exactly what we're doing. Exactly what's going on.
Perfect Perfect metaphor. Okay, the Satanic Temple, they're just fighting with the Christians. Oh, you want to have after-school programs? We can have after-school programs. Oh, you want to have churches? Well, we can have chapters. Oh, you don't like abortions? Well, we can have abortions. Exactly. Us, we're like, no, fuck you, you're dead. We don't want to deal with you. We're going to smash your gods and we're going to destroy it. That's how you see the difference between antithetical versus adversary. Now, how does that fit into the fallen angel concept? Because what we're saying is that Satan is the adversary of God, but is still working for God. Because he's not trying to destroy God. Makes sense? So when we go into the most famous Jewish understanding of what Ha-Satan is, it's the book of Job. And we all know the book of Job. Hey, God, I'm going to fuck with this guy to see if he's real, to see if he has real faith and shit, and I'm going to fuck hard with him. And he fucks with him. He goes, oh, well, God, I need your permission to kill his family, and I need to do that. And he just keeps letting it happen. Until at the end of the day, the motherfucker has nothing. No family, no fucking farm, boils all over his skin, nothing. Right? That's pretty much the story of Job. I'm not going to get into all the goddamn details because it's ridiculous. So, here's a guy who is basically the district attorney for God. And he's persecuting an innocent person. Think about that. This guy is innocent. But I want to persecute this guy anyway.
God's like, well, fuck it, I'm bored.
And God's like, yeah, great, persecute the shit out of him because you know what? I'm right. And I'm going to prove to you I'm right. What kind of God is that? Anyway. So now, you have the model of the devil, but it's too powerful. Even the Zoroastrians are dumbing this shit down. And then we have this other idea of an adversary who works for God, who judges people, right? And accuses them. And then we have kings in Judaism that we call Satan because they're adversaries to the kingdom of God. So we're calling these other guys Satans. So when we get into goetic demons, we find out that these kings that they called Satans aren't actually goetic demons. And hence the term Satans. Now, we're gonna move on over to the concept of what they call the fallen angels of the Nephilim, or the dark angels, that came out of Judaism that was talking about Moses had, and God had to drown them all, and Moses made the ark and all that bullshit. Okay, so there is a book that comes out of Islam that makes a connection to Shaitan, not Iblis specifically, but Shaitan being Azazel. And if you don't know what Azazel is the fallen angel of the Nephilim of weapons, makeup, sex, all kinds of other things. Okay? So he's basically taking on the adversarial king, and the adversary against God thing. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they fell to earth and they're not going to fuck around and listen to God anymore. They're going to intermingle with the humans. And that makes him now the prince of the earth. See how this is developing. So we shoot back over to Islam, and they're comparing Shaitan to Azazel, and then they start coming back up to Malek's house, and they start pulling things together there. And then in the meantime, we got these fucks, the Catholic Church, by the way, who have all of their churches originally, including the Vatican, built upon a Mithric cave or a Mithric basement area, because with Mithra they did it in caves and shit. That's how they worship Mithra. And Mithra is the precursor idea of the Christ, and then with the other family that influenced from Egypt, that's how he gets the Horus stuff. But the majority of it is Mithra. Mithra is one of Oromaz's good guys. So the concept of Angra Mainyu and that concept of that devil It's already in Rome. It's already there. And you start seeing the parallels by it talking about how the devil fell from the sky, and he took 1/3 of heaven's hosts with him. Well, you read in the Bible corruption, it's when Ahriman gets stuffed in a hole, he takes 1/3 of the stars with him, 1/3 of the heavens with him. And we're going to start drawing these parallels, and it'll start making much more sense. Okay, and then the fallen angel is stuffed and locked down in the hole. Well, who else is stuffed and locked down in the hole? Angra Mainyu. And then somehow he's able to come out and tempt people. And then he uses his other demons to tempt people too. And those are the same demons that you find in the Goetias, which were the kings that were adversaries to the kingdom of Judea. All this coming together yet. It's really not that complicated, but it's stupid. So
Complicated research.
now you have this baby version. Actually, it doesn't really become Lucifer until later on. It starts out as just being Satan. Okay, they've removed the Ha part and just made it Satan, and then it transforms into Lucifer a little bit over time. But that, irregardless. So the concept of the fallen, negative God, comes out of Judaism and Zoroastrianism, but for two different reasons, in the form of Azazel. Then the concept of Melech Taus now influences Melech Taus combined with Nergal. And the Islamic version of hell, or their underworld, is based off the Sumerian that's ruled over by Nergal. So now you're going to see attributes of Nergal being applied to Melech Taus in order to create the Iblis. But you're also going to still have the influence of the Ha-Satan of being the accuser of man. Make sense? So it's all coming together. We're leaving behind Angra Mainyu at this point. Angra Mainyu's already been dumbed down by the Zoroastrians, and now he's locked away. And they're trying to erase him from all history. Trust me. So, when we get into Islam, Shaitan means Satan, means adversary. Same thing that Satan means, it's adversary. Adversary to God. Then we get Iblis, and then you get the concept with Iblis of being the original jinn. Jinn is a dev or a druj. So now you're debasing Iblis to below a deva. Make sense? He's now a middleman. Because it goes deva, dev, druj. He's now been reduced to either a dev or a druj. A genie. Not saying that it's not evil, it's just been reduced in power. So, per later Islamic writings beyond Muhammad, according to them, the jinn were around 2,000 years before man was around and were living on earth, much like the Nephilim, or the fallen angels. Until they fucked up so bad that they were removed into a reality that surrounds this reality. So they live in a parallel reality that they can influence with our reality in and out. To the point that according to some schools of Islam, you can marry a jinn, you can fuck a jinn, you can make a hybrid jinn-human thing, all kinds of craziness.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It gets weird quick. And I'm not even going to go into that shit, okay? And there's 5 classifications of different kind of jinn, blah, 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 blah.
Sounds like the Islamic version of the space pope.
Why not? Why not?
Could you potentially turn yourself into a jinn?
No, you cannot. It's a separate race.
Yeah, alright.
It's a whole separate race. Now,
That's when you're filling out your character sheet.
basically. So, we have an understanding now that we have an intermixing of problems. Because we come into this asshole known as Solomon. Where all goetic magic spews from, right? He's the guy who's controlling angels and demons and all that horse shit, right?
Allegedly so.
Allegedly so. And there's a current argument in religious lore, and they're leaning more away from it. But right now, the current argument is that Solomon and Jamshid is the same motherfucker.
Jamshid?
King Yima. It's the same fuck. There's an argument about it. I'm not going to say yay or nay. I'm just going to let you know that there is a belief that they are the same fuck.
King Yima from Zoroastrian.
Yes, sir.
The one that was fighting Dakhma.
Yes. Because he also was manipulating angels and demons.
Oh.
Just like Solomon was manipulating angels and demons.
Huh. There's something else I wanted to point out. In the Al-Jilwa, the Yazidi book, one of Melik Taus's names is Azazel.
Yep.
So there's that as well.
Yeah, that leads right back to them trying to all fight each other for the same fucking thing. And they're all trying to be right, or righter than the other.
Well, they're all being really formulated and solidified at the same time.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculousness. So, in Jewish lore, they kill all the bad angels and shit, and they drown them, but all the adversarial kings became demons, and we're going to use them to do the thing.
Isn't that convenient to the plot?
Now, in Islam, all the bad angels or bad guys were put into another reality. They can still influence our reality.
Then what was the point of putting them in another reality if they could?
Because man was superior to jinn. Thus, which is why you have Iblis refusing to bow down to man, because he, or the jinn warrior, actually superior to man. And God said, don't bow down to anything but me. But then God ordered him to bow down to man, and he refused to do so. Which is why they came to the agreement that I'm going to stay around till you decide to destroy the world and take as many souls away from you, thus continuing to sin more, like in Zoroastrianism. But now, so in Islam, you have a hell. And then you have this other reality of jinn that are constantly interacting with our reality. Much like you see in Hinduism, where you have the deva that are invisible, but they interact with reality all the time. So now you have a mixing of that going on. Anyway, the key centric character at this point now becomes Solomon. And Solomonic magic. Well, to Westerners, Solomonic magic is Galatia, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you're still doing sigils and mirrors and triangles and all that shit, and it looks a lot like Hinduism if you start peeling away the Jewish structures of it. Okay?
Yes.
And you don't so much confine them to stones and rocks and shit, but you do have the little trap and you're fucking with them that way. Right? And that is westernized looking magic, correct? Well, if Jamshid is Solomon, and we see the exact parallels coming over here, and you're adding the concepts of Hinduism making talismans and attaching Deva and Devi to certain rock stones, whatever that correlates with the internal structure to influence. Now you have the things like jinn rings, jinn amulets, because it's basically just creating another talisman like the Hindus do with jewelry, except they're using the jinn, which are medium level Zoroastrian bad guys who live in a separate reality that interconnects with our reality. And the reason that I say middle is because I don't want to insult the concept of the jinn, but if you look at the concept of Droog, and Droog being female liars, and Droog being those females that are around you, and that correlation of Droog, rather than just being bugs that are nasty female little minor entities that connect themselves to jewelry, that connect themselves to books, that become the cursed objects. But you're looking at kings, so kings are going to be the devs instead of the jinn, but it could be both. You can go either way with both. And that's how you now have jinn rings that are influenced by the 5 different kind of jinn, which there again are influenced by the 5 chakras, and the 5 chakras are influenced by the 5 different devatas. So it all leads back, if you want an antithetical, an Angra Mainyu is a prefaces and a corruption of Shivai. Now, Satan and all of these lead back to Melech Taus, which is the adversary to God and a minion of the antithetical creature known as Angra Mainyu. But his job is not to destroy everything. His job is to be in competition with the Creator and make the thing strong so that when the destructor comes, the destructor can destroy what God has established and leave what the adversary has already created for him now to control. And that, my friends, is the difference between devil worship and Satanism, antitheism versus adversary. And all this shit that the Satanists are doing is all intermixed with the same shit that anybody else is doing in the Abrahamic religions as far as the negative satanic side of it, whether it be fucking with Jinn, whether it be fucking with Druge, whether it be fucking with Dakhma from Zoroastrianism, or fucking Lucifer, or the Goetia, or any of it all. It's all the same fucking thing with a different cultural attachment to it. And a different ideal of how to make the magic happen. That's it. Some people like columns and knives. Other people like fucking around with jewelry. Whatever. But it's all still Satan. And I'm not saying you can't get power off this shit. I'm not saying that at all. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you can't do hellacious magical workings with goetic demons, with jinn, with all that shit. I'm not saying that at all. Please don't get me wrong there. There is a lot of power to be had there. But I'm sorry, there's much more power up here. This is messing with your personal reality and those around you and what's happening versus fucking with everything around you and beyond you.
The microcosm versus the macrocosm.
Exactly. And so in traditional Ahrimanism, you use both. You use both. You need to do something to change something directly around you, Druge, Dev. You use that. You want to attack something as large as the Catholic Church, you use Angra Mainyu. You use the things that Angra Mainyu surrounds himself with. Shivai, Kalima, Chinamasta, Chamunda, all of these dark death gods. You use both. It's not one or the other, it's both. And using these death gods is magic inside out. And this is just outside magic. Make sense, everybody?
Yes.
Any questions? Oh, we need to finish up Lucifer. I'm sorry. We didn't round off and finish up Lucifer. Okay. So Lucifer means light bearer, light bringer. Melech Taus is considered a light bringer. And now the modern thing is it's Euros or whatever the fuck they're calling it these days, from the Luciferian camp. Bottom line is, you don't see the concept of Lucifer being a anti-hero until with Dante's Inferno, the Divine Comedy, and then you start seeing that with Mark Twain, and then the atheists take it on the moniker as an anti-hero, which is still an adversary to God. So it's still adversarial. Anti-hero and adversary are the same fucking thing.
Till it boils down, now he's a cop on a TV show.
Yeah, now he's a cop on a TV show.
He's a detective in LA.
In LA. But what everybody has to understand, it's still rebellious. And all three of these, you're looking at a rebel. He's rebellious. He's going against God because he's got daddy problems. This guy has said, fuck this, I'm killing everything. These guys are like, oh, I'm just going to fuck it up and take followers away from him. This guy said, I'm just fucking kill everything. Destroy everything you make, fuck you. And I'm going to use these assholes to do it. Cool?
Right.
But the modern concept of Lucifer starts with Milton and starts with Dante and Blake and all of them, when it's really Satan. And then when you get into France, when they start doing black masses and shit, then they say Satan, Lucifer, which really means adversarial king Lucifer to God.
That sounds like
it's one entity, not two, in their minds. It comes from two different cultures, and it could be seen as two different entities. But when you get into the beginnings of anti-Christian stuff, when they say Satan, Lucifer, they're meaning the adversarial king Lucifer. They're not. That's why they say Satan, Lucifer. It's not one to them. Whereas in more modern Satanism, you see it as two separate things. Let's see this Lucifer being in the east, Satan being in the south. One represents fire, the other represents air. But that's the influences of Western magic by Crowley and all that other shit.
So wait, what about the Baphomet? Where does that play into the Satan narrative?
Alepus Levi is where that comes from. It goes down that line that Cornelius Agrippa, I forget who's in between, and then you start getting to Alepus Levi, then Alepus Levi into Crowley, and then Crowley into Levi. And that's usually the line that it goes down. And then you have a split with Crowley that goes Thelema, OTO, and other stuff. But your main split in a lot of modern left-hand path shit is Crowley. Crowley is a hinge point where you see things branching off of him. A hub, sure. His works could be a hub. But if you want to get into actual satanic knowledge, as far as going down the line of the Church of Satan, it goes in tandem: LaVey, Crowley, Eplus Levi, Cornelius Agrippa. And then in the satanic rituals, they take all of these rituals that worship dark gods and combine them together, or what was considered devil worship, like Yazidi. So like Thoth, he's the god of knowledge, and Lucifer's supposed to be of knowledge, so they have that Thoth ritual in there. And then LaVey also combines in the fantasy aspects of Lovecraftian stuff. And then he brings in that Lovecraftian stuff into the satanic rituals, which to me parallels a lot of the satanic panic kind of stuff, in my mind. But that's just my opinion. So you have to understand that when you get to LaVey and Satanism, it becomes a hodgepodge of different aspects, much like Wicca, where it's using the same dark entity out of different cultures, and tries to bring all the aspects of them together. So he has Ahriman, he has Kali, he has Shiva, he has Nergal, he has Marduk, he has Azazel, he has Pan. All those dark, lustful gods, or gods of just plain knowledge, he tries to bring in. And I think what that is to allow people to study enough of the dark gods, to pick one in particular, to work their attributes to become like. And a lot of that goes back into Tantra, where I am he, I am she, meaning I am the god that I worship. In other words, I'm going to take on and become that god. And I think that's what LaVey is trying to do covertly without outright saying it. So here's a plethora of Satans that you can start modeling yourself after. But it's up to you to do the fucking work to find it. And a lot of people don't understand the cult means you gotta do work. Your own work to find your own shit. Anywho, I hope that makes an understanding of the difference between the devil and Satan, and what we mean by antithesis versus adversary. Alright.